The big semi industry, which I've worked in a little bit in Australia, has said, don't worry about Tesla. They don't matter. Don't worry about the other car company, the other truck companies making electric semis. They're not going to bring them to Australia because they can't legally do so. They're too wide. Yeah, they're too wide. It's true. Well, they were too wide. All of a sudden now, the semi industry in Australia are starting to piss their pants because they've gone, whoa, hang on a minute. We can be disrupted now. Rules just changed. Here's what happened. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. And I've got to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters and YouTube members, and actually to all of you for supporting the channel. It's been an amazing year this year. It's been a roller coaster ride of sorts. Crazy, insane. And anyway, we're here. We made it here. Tesla, the semi, it's too wide for all Australian regulations. Well, it was. Not anymore, though. And keep in mind, this also applies to the Chinese. The Chinese want to send electric semis that they make in China to Australia. Australian trucking companies still manufacture trucks here in Australia. It's actually a pretty big industry in Australia, but they're going to be under some very, very difficult conditions here because wages here in Australia are actually very, very high, second highest in the world. Wages in China, very low. Their efficiency is much higher. And they obviously make electric vehicles at a far, far higher pace and at a much better quality than the rest of the world. So it's going to be a very dangerous situation now that the rules have changed, allowing vehicles like the Tesla Semi to come here. Will they come here? I think it's a matter of time, of course. Why wouldn't you? Because there is no compelling electric semis available here in Australia, and this will apply to other countries as well. Recent reports say Tesla and BYD will significantly disrupt the semi market in Europe, not just the United States, but also in Europe. And they say that that is certain to happen. So this decision to allow wider truck bodies creates electrification of big rigs in Australia, but it also will create enormous disruption. Now, the Driven.io says that a major change to Australian design rules promises to be a game changer for Australia's shift to electric freight transport. Now, that's a really nice thing to say, and I agree with them. I don't think the hydrogen thing is not going to take off. I think the trucking industry has realized that, which is why they've committed billions of dollars in investment into electric trucks, not into hydrogen. That's happened within the last 8 weeks all around the world. Biggest trucking companies have done this, but Australia hasn't really been part of this picture until now. This new rule announced by the federal government in Australia will allow wider trucks on Australian roads, bringing the country in line with overseas markets, China, Europe, America, and removes one of the key barriers to local uptake of heavy-duty electric trucks, as most overseas models were just a few centimetres too wide to meet Australia's previous standards. The other thing to keep in mind is if the truck is a few centimetres wider, it doesn't sound like much, but it actually equates to a pretty significant difference across the entire body of the actual container size on the back of the semi. A few centimetres all the way from top to bottom and then all the way to the end probably gives you about an extra 5% more space. Plus it's electric, which is a huge improvement. Now, there is a Tesla Semi that just did, I believe, 1,500 miles of driving within a single day. So for people saying it's not going to happen because the distances are too far in Australia, well, you're wrong, clearly. The Safer Freight Vehicles package responds to direct calls from industry to increase the width limit of trucks and follows extensive public consultation and feedback, said Federal Assistant Minister for Infrastructure and Transport Carol Brown. These changes will be a real game changer for industry, causing massive disruption, I should say, businesses and other road users, as they will save lives by adopting technology to reduce the likelihood of crashes, while also lowering freight costs and supporting better environmental outcomes. Even the Australian government is saying electrification will lower the cost of freight. What is the benefit of this for you? If you're an Australian, it's going to mean everything will be cheaper. I mean, freight is the biggest cost of food. When you get a 2-litre bottle of milk, what are you paying for? The biggest cost is the cost to ship it from the farm to wherever you are. Reducing the cost of freight, reducing the cost of energy, which is what will happen, and therefore that will have a direct flow-on effect to the cost of actually freighting things to you, will actually help to reduce prices across all of Australia. Plus, emissions will be far better. Trucks are very, very problematic for emissions. Some of the worst polluting vehicles, of course, are semis. The change increases the overall width limit from 2.5 to 2.55 meters for new trucks, as long as they are fitted with safety features such as side guards and devices to limit blind spots. This has been an issue that groups like the Electric Vehicle Council, thank you EVC, Electric Vehicle Council, for your work on this, because without you, I don't think this would have happened, have been working towards for a number of years, as the 2.5 meter limit had severely hampered options for heavy-duty electric vehicles to be brought into Australia. Now there will be a flood of those. Companies like Kenworth, PACCAR, well, they better get their freaking butts into gear and start making electric trucks, because otherwise they're in serious danger of losing half of their sales within only a few years. Increasing the width limit of trucks brings Australia in line with major overseas markets like the European Union, which is vital if we want to increase the supply of electric trucks on our roads, said EVC Chief Executive Bayard Jafari. Being out of step with international regulations has restricted the supply of electric trucks into Australia. Aligning these standards will make it simpler and cheaper for Australian operators to access electric trucks, while also improving productivity, freight efficiency, and safety. So yeah, big win. Tesla had warned back in 2021 that its semi-electric trucks would not be able to be released in Australia, as they were only 30 to 50 millimeters over the width limit. It's only 3 to 5 centimeters. In the US, the truck width limit is 2.6 meters. In the EU, it's 2.55 meters. Other transport bodies such as the Heavy Vehicle Industry Australia and the Trucking Industry Council have welcomed the announcement, which is a shock to me. I would have thought that they would be kind of controlled by the existing trucking companies, but clearly they're not. Allowing 2.55 meter width vehicles on Australian roads meant that these vehicles could be fitted with the latest safety technologies and, importantly, will result in the faster deployment of zero-emission vehicles in Australia. In other words, disruption will happen much quicker. The change will be particularly helpful for light-duty trucks. According to a 2022 report from the EVC and the Australian Trucking Association, vehicles based on EU or European Union and US market designs make up around 60% of new heavy trucks. Redesigning them for the Australian market costs around $30 million every year, which is insane. But every truck will be more expensive as a result of having to do that. This will lower the cost of those trucks in the country. This is an important step on our journey towards safer, cleaner transport solutions, said the Vice President of Emerging Technologies. And Volvo, even Volvo, are very keen to enter Australia with their electric trucks, which they are focusing on. So I think you're going to see a big change in the trucking market. Volvo, BYD and Tesla probably going to focus on it even more so in Australia. Now, there is one thing holding back electric truck adoption in the country. That is this: weight limits. Weight limits is a holding back electric trucks though. This is the final frontier here. So the weight limits are between 6.5 tons from the front axle to 7.5 tons, which is not quite enough for big electric semis. So there's really a lot of work going into trying to change those rules, because obviously big electric semis with a big battery pack are a little bit heavier than their diesel-powered variants. Now, Jafari from the Electric Vehicle Council said this: as the adoption of electric trucks accelerates around the world, it's vital that Australia stops falling behind. Increasing the width limit is a great first step, but we need to keep the momentum going to support our country's electrification. In other words, we need to increase the weight limits, not by a lot, just by around 10%, I think would be enough. We encourage the federal government to build on this announcement by introducing a mass concession 1 tonne minimum for electric trucks and making it cheaper and attractive for Australian businesses wanting to embrace this technology. In other words, a 1 tonne axle increase. More broadly, we need a national electric vehicle strategy that allows a plan to decarbonize our heavy vehicle fleet over the long haul. Now, the other big benefit here that people aren't considering is, I personally believe trucks are responsible for a lot more crashes than what people believe. And the reason is, often you'll get a crash when there'll be 2 trucks in both the right lane and the left lane. You come around a corner on a freeway or a highway, both of them are doing 20, 30, 40 kilometers an hour, very, very slow, and people suddenly try to swerve from the left lane to the right lane. Then they realize there's a truck in both lanes, and this causes all kind of chaos. Electric trucks can get up hills. Gasoline, diesel-powered versions just can't do this. And I mean, that's a clear fact. I just drove from Newcastle to Melbourne, and I encountered this kind of dangerous situation numerous times. In fact, I encountered even more dangerous situations with big diesel trucks trying to merge into traffic, just pulling off the side of the freeway in front of traffic, going really, really slow. And I personally was nearly smashed into by a semi who did this really slow. They don't have enough power. They're massively underpowered. I mean, have you ever seen a gasoline-powered vehicle, right? Car that takes 30 seconds to get from 0 to 62 miles an hour and can't get up a hill? I mean, without doing 30 kilometers an hour. That, in my opinion, is crazy. This is another big benefit to electrifying the trucking industry. Aside from the emissions, the cheaper cost to run them, the fact that they last longer, is also they'll be much, much safer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.